back and she's in a good mood. The sun is shining.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a change, doesn't it?
It makes a change. It makes a change. I don't know how long for.
Well, yes, the
You'd
pessimist
be thrilled
built
to know
in.
it was 10 degrees this morning.
Oh my! Well, I must say we did have a titter about dear old Birmingham Airport this weekend. Apparently, there was a jam, as there is in all airports, towards weekend, and they're actually queuing out the doors, weren't they? And two people were treated for hypothermia
Oh
in
my
June. My goodness me!
Well, my daughter-in-law she's in Barcelona at the moment, and that explains why then her flight was delayed and delayed and delayed, and she's there on a conference. And that explains why, right?
There you go. Oh, dear me. Anyway, we're complaining because it's too hot. We've had our hottest May. I mean, we're
Oh, be
well in the
quiet.
30s, which is not
Truly,
unusual for
honestly, I
May.
think I would say this feels the coldest one. It's horrible. And the rain, it's like March.
Oh my goodness me. Yeah. Well, the hint is, I've been given a hint by the Met Office that you may have a better than average summer in the UK this year. Well,
Well,
it can't
I
be.
don't know how to take that, but it was funny on Saturday because the wind and the big black clouds. My little granddaughter was 4 years old, and being June, everyone thought what a good idea to have an outdoor party. So they went to this splash pool, and they hired it for 2 hours, and these kids were aged 2 to 4 years old. And there were 26 of them, and after the first 15 minutes, they were absolutely freezing.
Oh,
It all
bless.
came out. Oh my God, the wind. There were paper plates and serviettes and sausages flying
Oh,
around.
welcome to the dear old weather of United Kingdom.
I was
Yes.
exhausted when I got home.
You don't get bored. You don't get bored.
That's true.
Yeah. Right, come on, we move on because there's been some other good news, and that is that there's 8,000 more plod coming along to plod our streets about time. If the Tories get back in, well, forget the Tories getting back in. So what we're discussing this for? But have they actually come up with a sound way ahead? And therefore, why didn't they blooming well do it before?
Well, this is the point, isn't it? I agree. I think poor Richie, he can't really get it right, can he? He was being interviewed yesterday by Nick Robinson, I think it was. And he said the thing about the 8,000 and all that. And then he said, I am really proud of the last 14 years. I thought, oops, I think he should maybe have said, I am really proud of what I've achieved in the last X number of years, but I don't know how any Conservative can be proud of what they've achieved in the last 14 years. I mean, was it Theresa May that got rid of 20,000 decent coppers?
Yeah. This is the true definition of net zero, by the way, that we're talking about now, because that's what's been achieved over that period.
Yes, exactly right. That is very true. I mean, they're all supposed. Well, I suppose if you're the Tories, you're in the best place to be able to cost and fund things, aren't you? I personally am very. I mean, I can't stand Keir Starmer. I don't trust him. He's a slimy so and so. But I don't see how. And I'm hoping a lot of pensioners come out how you can tax pensions. I mean, I think that's awful to tax your pensions for millions of pensioners many of whom are already struggling. To do that would be absolutely awful. But, there was a thing this morning, there was a lady who's on anti-knife crime, she was talking about the knife crime that Rishi Sunak's going to, nail this and get it all sorted in London. Well, they've had plenty of time.
They have, and now the official figures come out that 80% of the killings in London are by knives.
Yes, they are. They are. And now there's this dreadful case yesterday where these two 12-year-olds, I don't know if you saw this, two 12-year-old boys have been charged with murder with a machete on a 19-year-old young man in November last year. Now, it came out this morning on the news that one of the 12-year-old boys bought this machete for £40 off Amazon. Well, how can he do that? So did he buy it or did somebody else? Because he's only 12. And how can you possibly... So he's obviously set something up and, lied about his age. But then, my goodness me, you've got to go further back than that and think, what sort of childhood did these children have? Because they were saying, which is true, the first thing when I was in the car and I heard this, is, oh my gosh, this is going back to almost a Jamie Bulger case, wasn't it? Which was the first case where those two youngsters had abducted and murdered. But this is the first, they reckon, actual murder, knife murder, the youngest ever in Britain. I mean, it's just, it's out, oh.
Well, it's highlighted a number of things. It is calculated there were 10 when they committed the crime.
Oh, yes, they could have been, yes.
Yeah, the lefty liberals are saying, oh, well, they didn't really know what they were doing at 10.
That's rubbish.
Well, hang on. We're not developed fully till we're 25. So are we going to get rid of all the murders till age 25?
Well, the criminal age of responsibility in England is 10. Now,
yes, indeed.
In Scotland, it's 8.
Yes, well, if you ask any psychologist, it's 7, where you can actually achieve the difference, or realizing the difference between reality and fairyland. Yeah. By 10, you may have half a reality, but you've certainly not got no reality. And when these two characters came along and said, it is what it is, and are still saying that now, it's unbelievable.
It's now, dreadful.
Therefore, do we have a go at the parents?
Well, here we go again. Well, yes, they have a part to play in this, because no child would behave like this if they'd had thoroughly good parenting. It wouldn't even have crossed their mind. I mean, how did they get this knife off Amazon in the first place? And 12 years old, I struggle to believe that these kids had a very solid, grounded upbringing. I don't believe it, because you've only got to look at the Venables, who was one of the boys that, I mean, his childhood was awful. I'd love to see the school report on these two boys to see what they've been like in school, because they would now be, if they were at school, they'd now be year 7. But I mean, it's dreadful. And where do they get this idea from? Probably social media, probably gaming, who knows? But
should they be named, Marilyn? And should their parents be named?
Well, it's a difficult one, that, isn't it? I don't see why they shouldn't. Why should they be protected? I know what's going to happen. They will have a whole name change. They will be forever, if they do come out, forever looked after by the state, given another house, live under the the shield of protection of anonymity, whilst everybody else has to get on with their life who lost their child. And cope. I mean, Venables and the other guy, what's his name? Was it Thompson? I can't remember what his name was. But, they are not called those names now. They're protected, safe houses and all that. It's not right.
No. As I say, lots to come out about this. We should keep on top of this story.
Yeah, it's actually very sad. It's although it's outrageous, it's actually very sad that a couple of 12-year-old kids, and as you say, younger when they did this, could behave in this way. I mean, oh my word. I mean, it's dreadful. It doesn't bear thinking about, really, as to how you're going to come through that.
Right, let's move on to something a good deal more cheery, because Labour have solved all our problems when they get into power, because they're going to give free breakfast clubs to all the children. Sounds very nice, isn't it? So we'll have free breakfast clubs. Then we'll have free meals provided to 25% of the children that are on free meals at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. Perhaps they'll give an evening meal with the cabaret. I'm waiting for that one to come.
Well, I don't see this free meals for everyone, because everyone doesn't need the free meals. You have parents who can pay for that meal if you want another breakfast. If you're actually going to be feeding the child. But I mean, the breakfast clubs are a good idea for children, for parents that go to work and they have that time to play before the start of school, and parents can get to work. But, maybe you pay, I don't know, a small cost to attend that club. But I don't think you should be getting a free meal if you are adequately feeding your child breakfast anyway.
Well, my stand on this. I'm completely against things like this, because parents should be parents. And a prime time to get to know your kids is morning and evening. If you cut the morning out, it's so easily to go and get socialized at work and not look after the prime task of bringing up your children.
Yeah,
I'm completely against it, but this is socialism, because the state will bring up your kids because they don't trust you to do it.
I know. I mean, I've always said to my children, they all do this, no matter how busy they are, both sets of parents, either or, whoever takes their children to school and picks them up. And I've said to my daughter, in Bermuda, I said, I know you've got the money to buy any sort of anything you want to help you, but if you start delegating your job of taking your children to school and picking them up at the end of the day, I shall be having something to say about it, because that's when you see how your child is. When they come out of school and they've had a bad day or a good day, they meet mum or dad or granny, and it all comes out. Oh, so-and-so called me this, so-and-so did this, or I got first prize for so. And if you have that somebody else doing that, you're never going to hear it, because by the time they've come out and gone home and had a snack, all that was bottled up in them, good or bad, is gone. And that's when you really need to be there as parents. Absolutely. You can't delegate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when somebody does a major survey on public education, private education, and on schools that you send your child away to be boarded. And I think it's fascinating, some of the stuff that does come out, the reaction of the children, particularly when they've been sent away, sometimes to another country, but sometimes to Scotland. I'm thinking of King Charles III. How's that affected him? How's the boarding schools affected many other things?
Well, I am not a fan of it at all. I can understand now, in our family at the moment, one of our my daughter-in-law's brother-in-law, he's very, very high up in the RAF, and his job is to do all the logistics for all the planes flying around, and he has got a 3-year posting over in Canada on one of the airbase things, and he's not flying planes anymore, he's doing the stuff. But we were at the party on Saturday with the little one, and he suddenly got a phone call that he had to be in Turkey, because it's pretty much frontline stuff, because he's doing, like, he has to organize all the refueling of the planes when they're maybe hovering over Ukraine or wherever it is they're going to, and he's not frontline anymore. But he often says, if the public knew how dangerous it was, but they go there. But now their children, because he's 3 years' time, he's going to be moved again, and she's about to start secondary school, so she is going to a boarding school in Cambridge because Granny lives down the road. And I think if you're in the military, I think those situations, rather than keep on moving your child, which then creates attachment disorder, because what's the point in making friends? Because in 2 years' time, mum and dad are going to be moving again and again and again. So, I do think there's benefit in some situations. I do, but I still don't like the idea. But she's dead keen. She really wants to go.
Well, there you go. Everybody's different. Dr. Mosley is a real tragedy. We obviously appreciate or depreciate the heat thing. We regularly get 40s in July and August. We're a little inland in Spain. That's where the real heat strikes. On the coast, it's not quite so bad. It may feel bad because you get the humidity on the coast, which makes it feel hotter, but it isn't hotter. So you can't win. But there's something coming out of this that is a bit unusual. The first thing that people are saying, although accidents can happen to anybody, he was on holiday, he thought he'd take a shortcut or a long cut, and he appears to be regularly wearing a hat in that sort of heat. You've got to. Umbrella can have a reverse effect, especially if you get a dark coloured one. That is not very wise. But as a doctor, people are saying, he should have known better. Well, you can't legislate for everything. You can take chances in this life. Maybe he did. But there are two things here that are a bit odd. I've hinted at one of them. The second thing is they had 25 people looking for him, and it took them 5 days. 25 people is not a lot compared with what would happen in Britain and many other countries. And why did they take 5 days when he was so close?
I know. I've asked the same thing. But I also thought, I read somewhere, and I checked it out again last night, that the reason he went for this walk was that the boat who dropped them all off for swimming was not due back till 4 o'clock. And he had said he didn't feel well, so he was going to walk back to where they were, but he'd left his phone at base where they were staying. Now, who does that? But yeah, there's all very well saying we can all make mistakes, but he was a doctor. Where was his bottle of water? Who in their right mind walks in the heat of the day? No one does that. Not in your countries. No one does that. And you wouldn't do this in England. I wouldn't walk my dog at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If it's a hot day, I wouldn't do that. So then you think, well, if he'd been swimming in that heat, was he already dehydrated when he came out from the swim? Was he going to pass away anyway? Was it a stroke? Was it a heart? Was it heat stroke? Was it dehydration? Because somebody was on last night saying that he'd been, because if you're dehydrated, you don't think straight, do you? You get very, very muddled. So when he started going up the climb away from one of the bars, why didn't he stop at the bar and have a drink and a rest? Yeah, he's 67 years old. He's not a young one. And then they said the slope, the screed thing that he was walking down, which obviously had been captured on CCTV unknowingly at the time, that would normally take someone 2 minutes, and he was taking half an hour, and he looked, when they watched that, like he was in distress, and then he fell over. Now it's called, what was it? Sorry, natural causes. Well, what is that? What is natural causes? But well, I agree with you. You had 20 people going around there, and the drones, or was it just so rocky and boulders that there was the shade? Maybe he was in a shadow. It seems extraordinary, really, that his own family were only 5 meters away from him when they were looking.
Yeah, odd.
It's very odd. It's very odd. It's desperately sad because it was 100% unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move on to one of your favourite ladies. We keep coming back to this. It's the lovely Paula Venables. And another interesting thing has emerged. Basically, 5 years before she eventually got the Spanish Archer, the elbow, 5 years ago, they decided, 5 years before that event, they decided to get rid of her, but nobody had the courage to do it.
There you go, see? I read that. It's outrageous.
Well, it's not the first time, Marilyn. This happens in a lot of organisations.
Yes.
They've not got the bottle to say, you're not up to the job.
And that was the reason they were going to get rid of her, because they didn't believe she was the right person for the job. Well, there's a surprise. But you're talking of 9 years ago. How many people's lives did she mess up in that time, after that time? I mean, it's just dreadful. I mean, and they're still, this is what gets me, they're still waiting for their compensation. It's terrible. And I put a thing out on last night, which you got the Paula Venables thing. I mean, I can't stand the woman. I mean, there was the Archbishop of Canterbury coming out yesterday asking everybody with the elections coming up, could people all be kind to each other, be nice and be kind, be honest and true with integrity? And yet he was all for making her Bishop of London. Where was her integrity? It's a bit rich, isn't it?
It's the Church of England blob. Don't forget they've got a blob just like Whitehall.
I mean, but it's a bit rich coming out with that when he wasn't sort of supporting his idea of integrity and being kind, was he? By thinking this Paula Venables is the best thing since Christ was born.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Well, this is why, of course, he's called just in time, because. Yeah, okay, we move on.
I know that. Yes. But also, not only, I mean, so there's that case, but I watched last night a thing called The Wrong Man. I don't know if you've seen it on BBC. It was about the guy who had done 17 years, Melkinson, isn't it? Mr. Melkinson, who did 17 years in prison for a crime he absolutely, you could tell, did not commit. And from quite some early stage on, they knew it wasn't his DNA. Now, the real man that did the rape and all the rest of it has never been found, but there was this top that the girl had been wearing with DNA on it, and it was not Andrew Melkinson's DNA. And still, the CCRC, who are the only group that can actually put something to appeal, wouldn't let him appeal. And he's come out and it's ruined 20 years of his life. He's still on benefits. He's still sofa surfing. He's still waiting to be compensated. Now, I wrote on X, Twitter, last night, a thing to Rishi Sunak. When is this poor man? You're coming up for an election. You've got the post office. You've got this. When are these people who have been so wronged, when are they going to be paid out?
Yeah, well, you'll not be there to pay them out. That's what is a classic kick in the long grass.
About something like 49% or 42% of Labour voters don't like Keir Starmer.
Yes, I mean, best of a bad job. The only hope in many people's minds is that there's a sudden massive push by the beloved Nigel, and enough people will support him that he may be in a position to say to the true Tory party, which is about 50 of them at best, let's get this thing going as a proper Tory party, and maybe after Keir Starmer has completely ruined the country, maybe we can get there in the end. That's
who's going to have to cope? Who's going to have to cope with all these cock-ups? We are. We're the ones whose lives are going to be impacted by it in this sort of feels like a social experiment, Then I think sometimes, well, maybe it's time for change. Well, where we are, a guy came knocking on the door the other day. He's the new Tory one, right? We haven't seen sight nor sound of a Lib Dem, a Labour, no one.
No, they're targeting seats. They hope to get 30 of the Lib Dems. That's the strategy, I believe. So you might see too much of them or none of them at all. Yeah, obviously, you're fortunate you see none of them at all.
But that's not fair on the people who, I mean, if we wanted to vote for Farage, we can't, because we don't have anyone we can put your cross next to. We don't have anybody for Labour if you wanted to.
Well, the only final answer, Marilyn, is to bring in proportional representation.
Absolutely right. And around where we live, they've changed, I don't know who the they is, but they've changed the boundaries for the different constituencies. So South Bedfordshire now has come into part of Hertfordshire. So the guy that was Labour here, he's been told he's got to drop Central Bedfordshire, and now he's got to go into the Hitchin one, where they will get a better chance of him getting in. Well, it was pretty useless anyway. Baby.
It's open for abuse.
Absolutely. So there's lots of people's boundaries who have been changed. And it's almost like rigging the voting system, isn't it, really?
Yes, we don't need to learn from America. We do it ourselves. Right, we're moving on. Are you getting fed up of walking into your bank, as an example, and seeing an A board in the foyer of your bank, if you can actually get a bank to walk into these days, and it's full of flags, LGBT, trans, you name it, there it is. This is Pride Month. We've got a month of this. We discussed this last week. Why should we have a blooming month when everybody else gets a day for much more deserving causes I mentioned? I'll be in trouble again. But why do banks get involved and big business get involved?
I suppose they think it's the PR thing to do. I don't know this because all our banks have been shut. So this is crazy. We have to go 15 miles for a bank. Yeah. We have to go 15 miles for a post office. Everything has been closed down here, which is absolutely ridiculous because these little villages around here are being absolutely, 4,000, 5,000 home builds going on, and yet it doesn't matter to me because I could do my banking online. But if somebody still does present a check to you, I know you can do it online still, but it's a long time since I actually went into a bank because by the time I have to go 15 miles, try and park, pay a fortune for parking, come back again, that's a 30-mile round trip. And as for the post offices, I mean, it's terrible. There's no support network. We've had thousands of houses being built in odds and blobs and all over the place. And we've got another one. We've got Persimmon Homes now who want to build another 170. which sounds nothing, but when you are living in a little village with roads that are only country roads, where the sides of them, with all the bad weather, are wearing away, it's about a car and a half. And then the crematorium slipped under the radar and was built. I'm sure there were some backhanders there, yeah, that went on. And it is, that's so now we found out they're going to do 14 services a day. Well, how many people come to a funeral? How many more is that? And then we found out, which might be our saving grace, that the field that they want to build these hideous houses on, we can't argue green belt anymore. It's past that one. So doesn't matter that it's green belt, doesn't matter that it's farming land. But what we found is that there were 2 mosquito jets in World War II that came down. So in a way, that's almost like a burial ground for those pilots. And the Mosquito Association is up in arms at this reverent spot where people actually in our village still remember them coming down and still go and pay homage, right? But furthermore, around the edge of this field is the Pilgrim Walk, as in John Bunyan Pilgrim's Progress. So there's heritage there. So I said, well, you know, I'm not being funny, but would you go up to Scotland and say, do you know what? We're taking a third of Hadrian's Wall down because we need to build some houses. You wouldn't do that. Why are you doing that here? And then we have a thing called the Red List. Oh, I was quite gobby. You know what I'm like. The Red List. The Red List is a conservation list of very birds, animals that are threatened with extinction. We have skylarks around here. We have beautiful wildlife around here. And if you're on the Red List, which a lot of our animals and birds around here are, then that has to be preserved. So we all know that the builders are going to say, oh, we'll build you a bigger sewage plant. Oh, we'll build you another doctor's. No, they won't. No, they won't. They never do. They never do. So we're hoping the thing is going to be, I think, next month, the hearing, that you know, we might win on that one. But I'm not a NIMBY. I'm not in a not in my backyardy. But there's a limit where a pint of water goes in a pint bottle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it never would happen in Spain. We're at the opposite end of the spectrum here, that sort of behaviour, because if we want a motorway, it's built in 2 years, not 22 years, which is fast for Britain, because the rights of an individual are not cherished as much as Britain. But we've gone, as I say, to the British extreme and nothing gets done. There was a story coming out West Wales this week whereby the last train was going to run and they couldn't run it before putting it in a museum because a seagull, which are menaces, pinching your chips when you're eating them,
yes,
and pooing on everything that they can, because on the inside track of the rail track, one seagull had built a nest, and the whole 2 or 3 days, people, the train aficionados, going up there and celebrating the last train, they had to cancel it all. It's cost, well, hundreds of thousands of pounds. Now, that is stupid. I mean, quite honestly, if it was me or you there, would have got tenderly down and put the bird's nest on the bank opposite the river.
I'm sure there's plenty of conservation people that would know how to do that.
Yes, too many laws, and it's madness. And I'm mentioning this because of the extremes. Spain is very extreme in lots of ways. You get the best and the worst here. If you want consumer protection, you go to the United States, and the customer is always right. If you want half protection, you go to UK, but the customer is not always right, but half the time you are. And there are certain laws protecting you. Now, because of Europe, there are now more laws in Spain to protect you, but nobody cares about laws in lots of parts of Spain. And I've come across a prime example that yours truly has suffered this last week when ordering some tablets from a famous firm of herbalistas. So it's hippie stuff, it's supplements. And there we are, and you do it online because you can't get, like all of the countries, to speak to anybody human. And as we all know, the computer never makes an error. You ask that to some postmasters, and they will tell you about errors in computers. Computers do make errors.
Of course they do.
And it's coming out from that dreadful accident of the Chinook in Scotland. What really happened there when the pilots were castigated? They were wrong, and every meeting they had every 10 years, they were still wrong, and the families knew they weren't dud pilots, they were good ones. And it's now coming out it was a software problem. They won't admit it because it'll mean lots of compensation, and another 100 years will be past when everybody's dead and forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Computers do make errors, and this computer, when I ordered, made an error. So I got a big tin of bodybuilding things, as if I need it. Come on. And I said to them, you're having this back. And they said, have you read the small print? I said, I'm not interested in reading small print because I'm normal and nobody reads small print. Well, we might be able to give you some money back for that big tin of collagen and whatever. But we're certainly not going to pay for the postage. Now, that, I'm afraid, is the bad side of Spain. They're all at it. There's very little the customer
I think you should
is
try
right.
it. You'll be like, all bulked up.
Popeye, I'll sooner have my spinach, it's healthier. So there you go. And the company, and I will name the company because I said I would when I had this delightful conversation with this young lady. And it was Salud Natural, and they're in Madrid. And they deal with you and misdeal with you. They're not the only ones. There are some people, and let me say to you that we criticize Amazon, but they're one of the half-right companies, and they have revolutionized quite a bit of Spain because basically when you drive a van and deliver their stuff, you're a franchisee. And you drive that van, it's your own van, you get paid by Amazon. Okay. And so if you want the post not to come by donkey, and it still does in Spain, a first class letter will take you months. Then you go to Amazon, get them to deliver it, and they do. And the other firms now are saying, oh heck, we'd better get up to speed here because we'll lose all our jobs. So well done. At last somebody's come in to give them competition. There's the clue, people. Competition.
Oh, competition always.
You've got no competition.
Oh, if you've got
you get
autonomy,
arrogance and
absolutely.
Weight.
If you've got autonomy, you can do what you like. But once somebody comes, and Amazon are, I mean, I use them all the time, and I use eBay a lot as well. But Amazon, they are just, I don't know how they turn it around so fast. I'd love to go in an Amazon warehouse and see when an order comes in, how does it get off the shelf, packed? I mean, there must be a whole load of machinery that goes chugging around the warehouse and picks things off the shelf. But I mean, the computerization behind that must be extraordinary. I'd love to go and see. I like going around places to see how they work. Yeah, I'm quite fascinated in how, because we've got some huge ones over across in Milton Keynes. They're massive. And we've got a distribution unit in Lidl that's the biggest one in Europe. It is huge. I can't even describe the size of it. It must be at least 3/4 of a mile long. It's massive. It's just off the M1. It's huge. But I am interested in how factories work and how things get. I'm even interested in wait for it. Going around to look around the new crematorium that's been built. I just said, because the way they landscape them is a quite restful place to be, actually, quite peaceful.
Oh, she's completely well.
I know I'm completely balmy. Yeah. But I like, that's I know, a bit weird like that.
Well, yes. I'm telling you who else is weird. For years and years and centuries, our lawyers and barristers in particular wear wigs. And they go into court with their wigs on and their long black dresses. And BAME and co have come along and said, oh, no, this is no good. I've got an afro hairdo and the wig doesn't fit me.
Get a bigger one then.
Oh, get your hair cut. But they're making a big thing about this, and some of the weaker members of the profession are actually saying, "Oh, we should rethink." It's like this horrible thing about letting ladies into the clubs, isn't it? I mean, it's June. They say,
Oh, you must
yeah.
have been absolutely thrilled to hear the news yesterday that, was it up north somewhere? There's about 100 women and girls that can't play football anymore. Where was that? Was it near Newcastle? There was something in the news, and I thought, oh, Rodney will love that. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Why should the men be able to play and the boys and not the women? I don't know if it's to do with funding or lack of space, but it was on BBC News yesterday, and I thought,
Oh well, I watch BBC News avidly. Yes, if I want a fairy story, that's where I go to.
I was there. It came out on Five Live Sport, and it was about these, now 100 women and girls that can't play football now, and I did have to giggle because I thought, well, that's right up your alley.
Well, there you go. Well, it's very demeaning on these young ladies playing football and getting themselves dirty, and then going into the bath. The bath. I'm sorry, I'm talking to a lady from south of the Watch. We'll move on, and we'll go to. Well, we mentioned the courts, and are they going to get away with it? I don't think they will. I think tradition will take precedence. And
I don't think they
that's
should.
not a popular thing to say these days, but I think we should be having more values like this.
I agree. That's what I've got to, I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. That because my son-in-law is a lawyer and he represents in court and he's got his wig. And I've got a feeling, depending on the wig and the way it is, depends on your seniority, doesn't it? Isn't there?
I don't honestly know.
I've got a feeling you can't just say, oh, I'll have that one. It's got curlier ears or it's got a nice little quiff. I have a feeling, I may be wrong, and some barrister can write and tell me, but I have a feeling that it does, that certain wigs you get if you're at a certain
Well,
stage
we'll
of
ask the question. And
barrister career.
yes, your seniority is reflected by your hairdo.
I think it is by the wig. I think I'm right in saying that. Because when I saw Sam's, I said, well, why did you choose that one or something? And I'm so I don't think I was dreaming it. I think I mean, in which case, if that's the case, then you have to wear it's a uniform. It's like anything else in your life. You don't, wherever you don't work in the fire brigade and say, do you know what? I'll just wear my jeans.
Well, indeed, I was going to say that if you come into court as you would do on a Saturday afternoon, what sort of status do you convey to the court?
Absolutely right.
No respect there. And
absolutely right. It's like when you're teaching, when I used to have some of the student teachers in, I used to say, you come into school in the morning, not like you've been dressed by a low-level Oxfam. You come in and you look smart. And even if you have the same 2 or 3 outfits that you wear and rotate, you come in because when you walk into that classroom, you are making a statement. You've got to view it as if you're going on stage. Those kids have assessed you within the first 10 seconds of you being in that room. And according to that comes their behavior. And it's true, though, isn't it? I mean, it is true. When I used to do assemblies, 400 or 500 kids in the hall, you go in and it's the way you hold yourself, the way you look, the way you make eye contact, everything that can, it's really important. I think the way you look and the way you respect the position or the role that you're acting out or doing at that time. I'm a great believer in appearance matters.
Yes, there is still the tension, and of course it started off in the 60s when everybody was laid back and hippie. Do your own thing. Well, by doing your own thing, you affect other people. You can affect other people for good and for bad. But there are certain situations where it's necessary to wear the uniform.
Absolutely right. And it's like you stand out. People know immediately who you are, what you're about to be doing, and he's a judge, or he's, it just. Here comes the fireman. Oh, that guy you mean rocking up in jeans? It's not going to cut the mustard, is it?
Marilyn, the things that we've mentioned over weeks and weeks about mobiles, and it's again coming out in the press. And there's a committee sitting. I don't know whether they sit in this period of purdah or not, but they're certainly going to be there after the event of the 4th of July in the United Kingdom. And it's going to talk about what age should we let children have mobiles.
Well,
now, should it be 12, 14, 16? Those are the three ages that have been suggested. Or is this nanny state again?
No, it depends on the mobile. I don't see why there's any harm in having a basic Nokia. You know, you literally just tell your mum that you're in a difficult place, or I've just missed the bus, or I mean, I'm going into a school in September to talk to year two. Year two are 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds about smartphones that they have. Why? Why does it? It's not a gaming machine. It's not a toy. I mean, and now they're going. I saw something this morning that I think Apple are going to put AI onto their mobile phones. So that's going to make even bigger problems. So I think 16, no younger than that. But of course, the trouble is you're 10 years old and you've got a 17-year-old brother. So you're going to be using the phone, or you've got mothers that are going to let their children use their phones. But I don't see why a child needs any more than, if you want to go and talk to your friend, go around and see your friend. Why are you spending all your time on Instagram? And it's just ridiculous. And, you know, good old fashioned face-to-face meeting up with your mates and just chatting about your life, that, you know, just like we used to do when we were growing up. I mean, it's bonkers. But, you know, I think, you know, 16 and anything under that, and you just have the old-fashioned brick, the thing that literally only sends texts and makes calls. I totally agree with that. And absolutely not in schools, other than, you know, when you keep it in your bag or you hand it into the receptionist. And why do you need a phone when you're in school?
Well, some teachers are actually saying, well, look this up on Google. Use your phone.
Well, they've got laptops.
Well,
they've got iPads in schools. Why do you need to use a phone? I don't know. I don't think. And if that's the case, then the school should provide it and take it back in after the lesson.
There you go. Mr. Starmer, he has stated, and others within his friendship circle, that if their son and daughter is taken ill, they must wait for the NHS to sort them out. And it's quite right. Now, is this gross hypocrisy? I think it is.
Of course it is.
Which parent would not do their best for that child? And
Absolutely.
if they could get that child...
Absolutely right. It's hypocrisy, because when asked, Rishi said straight away, because the question was, if you had a relative, a loved one that was seriously ill and couldn't access a waiting list or be seen, would you use private health? Rishi said yes, anyone would. And of course, our Keir says no. If I hear him say once more, the NHS is in my DNA, which is what he said, I feel like slapping him. If I hear him say once more about, you know, his role when he was director of the CPS, or one more time about his wretched father who was a toolmaker, yes, he created you. Make of that what you will. You know, yeah, there's going to be another one. Oh, now you see now. Yeah, I don't really like her. Beth Rigby tomorrow at 9 o'clock. She's having a go at both of them. But, you know, I mean, Rishi did have a point when he was interviewed, when he said, you know, so, okay, it's all about the immigrants, the migrant, the people coming in. And, you know, he said, well, they will be in July. The flights are going to go to Rwanda. Whether you like it or not, I think it's going to work as a deterrent, blah, blah, blah. And he turned around and he said to his face, Keir, so you're going to scrap Rwanda, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because you don't want to hold people in detention centres. You're going to let them out on the streets. People, many of whom come into this country with criminal records. Well, they're not even criminal records like we have over here with the DBS. They have committed crimes, and have been cleared to come in. It's ridiculous. But he wouldn't answer the question. He was like a bunny in the headlights. He would not answer the questions. It was quite interesting, actually, seeing how he didn't respond. I thought he was very weak. I have to say, you know, and what. But the biggest blunder, of course, is whoever agreed to Sunak leaving the D-Day thing. I mean, that is going to haunt him. I think
Yes,
he probably had a fighting chance until that happened.
it was another Gordon Brown trauma, wasn't it, that will haunt him forever.
It's going to haunt him forever. I mean, who honestly thought, who were his advisors? Why couldn't he have said to the media company, come and meet me in France? Or I can't do it now. I'm at this. I mean, really, truly, I mean, I can't understand what got into his head at all to do that.
No, I mean, he had the final word. It's all right trying to blame his young
Yeah, of course
advisors.
he did. Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed. Right, I'm going to move on to something a bit esoterical. Well, I'm saying that. Facebook. You may have, as everybody on this earth has, have updates to their computers and advising us to do this, that, and the other. And also we have announcements by the big companies how they're improving themselves. This is good news until you read it. Nobody ever does. It's in fine print, of course. And all they're doing is improving their position and disimproving your position. And Facebook has overstepped themselves big time. And this is going to come out in the fullness of time, but it's peaked above the parapet now, so we shall mention it. The policy updates that were last given last week carry some hidden dangers. Basically, Facebook said, well, we're looking into AI and how it's going to affect this, that, and the other. Thank goodness Elon Musk is defending, which you just mentioned about Apple. And he said, if you buy an Apple phone, you don't come into my businesses. Well, that's frightened them a bit. But it needs that sort of person with that sort of credit to say something. But this goes a bit further because you are signing your rights away by continuing with Facebook as an author. Now, if you write a book, you've got copyright on that book, and you make sure you have got it. But then comes AI. And in the fine print, although you've got to interpret the fine print because it's not like the nose on your face, it's not obvious, that basically Facebook can take hold of any part or the whole of that book, put it through the AI grinder, which may even rewrite 2 or 3 paragraphs. And therefore they can claim authorship and go on and sell it on Amazon or through Waterstones or whatever. And you're signing that away. So when you get some good news from a bank, a building society, Google, YouTube, whatever it is, no, it isn't. And if you've got time, and most of us haven't, go through and see what it really means. This is awful. Big and bad are taking over.
Well, I mean, with all these apps, when you download them, I'm always saying to the youngsters in the schools, you know, how many of you read the terms and conditions? How many of you read the T's and C's? Oh, I did. Oh, jolly good, because then you will have seen a little caveat that says when you tick, I agree to the terms and conditions, you are signing over your data. You are signing over anything you put on that platform will then be owned by Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And they can, and they do sell your data. And that is in the small print that no one reads. And all the kids go, oh, well, not all of them, a few put their hands up. And I said, well, you'll have seen that. That's very good that you've read it. I'm surprised you can actually see the print, let alone read it. But, you know, and they don't think. They just, oh, yeah, I want this app. And they don't realize once they've got your data, because everything goes onto that app's platform. And it's in your hard drive, it goes around the internet. And this is I think, fear of AI going on these Apple phones.
There's nought for nought, as we say up north.
Absolutely,
and that
absolutely.
is absolutely true. Very briefly, talk about Nigel and big business, big companies and what they can do. Where does the power lie? Well, a lot of people think it's in the World Economic Forum. I'm sure there's some truth in that. A lot of people think it's the WHO. A lot of people think it's Tony Blair or whoever, Davos man. You tell me, but there's a lot of truth coming through this. And Nigel's identified it. Who do you want to beware of, and who is controlling countries and companies? Well, big companies and banks have such power these days that they can introduce potty things like diversity, equality, which has come back to bite them now.
Yes, it has.
Big time. And what does he suggest? Well, he suggests, Nigel, that we become as independent as we can. Number one, don't just have one bank account that they can close down you.
That's right.
Down on you as a little man and a woman. Have more than one bank account. Cash is still king, and when they try to get rid of it, and they do all the time, you keep cash and pay and take cash as much as you can.
Yeah, because it's all this cash in hand stuff, isn't it? That's what they're saying.
Well, that's what they're saying, but what's the real reason behind it? Yeah, okay.
Tax evasion, isn't there?
Buy some gold, he says.
Yeah.
No, not everything in gold. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't buy more than 10% of gold unless it's crisis time. Mind you, we're in crisis time, aren't we now? But gold is good to buy. It does rise and fall. There are times to buy it and times not to buy it. Most importantly, perhaps digital currencies will come into their own eventually. At the moment, they're a big, big risk. But the banks don't like them for obvious reasons. They lose control. But if you understand them and can afford a bit of a gamble, get some digital currency from decent companies.
No, that's the trouble. There's always going to be a cowboy, isn't there?
Yeah, one or two have been found out already and got bumped big time.
Yeah, it's not something I'd take a risk on, I have to say.
Finally, Madame, I thought of you. I think of you quite a lot about, when it's a trigger. It comes to mind, you associate people with things and you maybe forget their name, but you associate it with a thing and you can't forget your name. So
What's coming? You thinking about me? What was coming? What's coming?
Well, 27,000 trees. Yeah, you're into trees, aren't you?
I love trees.
Right. Why is that? What is the 27,000 significant? Well, I'll tell you what is very significant. 27,000 trees are cut down every day to make toilet paper. Now, I don't know whether it was the trees or the toilet paper. No, it was the trees that I thought about. And so that's a lot. That's a lot,
isn't it? That's a lot. That is a lot. But hopefully, they might be cut down, but hopefully there's some forestry scheme here where you cut this lot down and then there's another lot that are already growing and another lot that have grown. You saw that in Portugal a lot with their forestry, the way they blitz and you think, oh no, they've taken them all down, and it's not long before it's all starting to grow again. So maybe they do it on a cyclical basis. They're not just eradicating 27,000 trees, and then it would have to be under controlled conditions, wouldn't it?
There is a better solution.
Oh no! Go on.
No, I mean,
I dread to think what's coming next.
Bamboo.
Oh,
now they can make it now. No, before you go, oh, that's a bit painful. There's a bamboo grows 100 times faster than any other wood.
I
know.
It's
easy, and they found the secret of making it soft. So that's a puppy dog that comes down the corridor with a toilet roll.
You rub olive oil in it, do you?
Yes, probably. It's going to be very happy still. And it's good that, science is very good and very useful at times, especially for toilet rolls.
You try it first.
Yes, and if I survive, yes.
You can pilot it.
Yes. We give the authentic news of. Well, listen, we always have a bit of a titter, and it's good for that with news. Do you remember, finally, the old days when we used to have Pathé News, especially at cinema?
Yes.
And it was good news.
Yeah, Pathé News. And I
Well,
also
we can't
remember
have good
when you
news
said,
anymore. It's
but
all
going back
rubbish.
to your toilet paper, do you remember Isel toilet paper?
Oh, well, that was made out of bamboo before they
It was
found the
like
secret.
greaseproof paper, wasn't it? Sorry, yeah, sorry, I digress.
You digress. And then you've not got the real example, of course, and that's the cut up pieces of paper many
Yes,
years ago.
yeah.
And I celebrate that The Guardian was used for that more than any other newspaper. On that, we will go.
You are incorrigible, you know that, don't you? Have a very good week. I'll wait for the lawsuits to come in.
See you next week.
Take care. Bye bye bye.